Hey there, y'all. Disney D Prince here today with another Barbie rebodying experiment, part of our Ken head swap project. Today we have the 60s Ken and Allan, and they are very cool. These are the soft heads. They're not Silkstone, don't worry. These were mass-produced dolls. They are a little harder to find now, but as you can see from their paint and stuff, they are not in perfect condition. I got these off of eBay lots, and I don't think I paid more than $10 for these dolls because their arms were broken and things like that. So, wanted to just show you guys. This is the 1960 Ken. And then Allan doesn't have a mold date on here, but you can see the 1960 right there. But I'm going to give these boys a little life of their own, and we are going to rebirth them onto some made-to-move Ken bodies. Now, as you can see, there is a difference in the neck sizes, which means that I'm going to have to do some surgery, because these do not have the same style of neck joints. They don't even have the same style as the older Ken dolls, which had like a circular disc that they fit on top of. These literally plug into the bodies, and it works. I don't know why they moved away from that style of head, if they were going to keep just giving Ken lateral articulation and not the full range of movement like we eventually got with the made-to-moves. But as you can see, they are two different skin tones. I'm going to use a cam doll for our vintage Ken. It's as close as I can get because the wheelchair Ken is not the right shade and he's too light for Sean, or Sean is too light for him. And then my other Tate one that I have is too peach for that, so he's actually just going to be a little bit tanner than he should be, but not by much. And then Allan is going to go on the Sean body, and it's a pretty good match. It's not perfect, but again, these are vintage dolls. They don't have modern analogs for the plastics, so we are going to do a little head surgery. Now, I only have one Allan. It's a little bit harder to find. So, I do have 3 other Kens. One is the actual original vintage flocked Ken, and he's in bad shape, but I didn't realize that he has the hard plastic that I'm not sure if it's Silkstone or not, and I can't get his head off without breaking the body and possibly the head, so I'm gonna just use the 60s Ken. Because, yeah, and then I have one other that's in the same mold that's also the Silkstone material, so I can't easily take his head off or manipulate it the way I'm used to. So, here's what we're going to start with. So, we are going to start by taking Cam off of his body. As you can see, his head is already soft. I don't need to heat it up. If you're more comfortable heating up doll heads that way, do it. I just feel like sometimes it's a waste of time if your head is already soft. So let's look at our necks and just try to figure out how much of a surgery we need to do, because it'll make the difference between just cutting it off here at the plug and doing a little slit in the back versus following the jawline and cutting up around the hairline. But either way, we're going to do the same kind of surgery. We're just going to use our nippers to start. Now, because it's a little bit of thicker plastic, I'm going to use my more industrial nippers. And I'm going to start by just taking the plug off. As you can see, it comes right off. And it shows us that this head has another inner ring, which means that in addition to that, we're gonna have to cut that inner ring out. Which is not the best situation, just because we can't necessarily get it out without doing some damage to the exterior of our head. But as you notice, I'm going in and then out like this, trying to get to that inner ring. And what we want to do is just kind of cut around that inner part of the plug to try and get to that. I like to put a nice little X in the middle, just because sometimes it makes it a little bit easier to only make smaller cuts like that. As you can see, we're starting to lose some of them. Okay. So like that, we've already got a little bit of a more acceptable hole opening. So as you can see, we can already put that part in there, but it's going to be too narrow still to go down around our neck. So what we want to do is probably go up just a little bit. So as you see, we're going to follow that cut of the jaw, where the jaw goes in on the mold, and we're going to do this on both sides. Use your light that's got a little bit of shadow to it. And then we're going to try and take that off. To give us just a little bit more of a guide. But as you can see, we're following the cut of the jaw. And like I said, this is a method for upcycling dolls that are a little more in the vintage category. I'm actually going to use my more fine motor ones now. Let's do these smaller ones like I want to do, just to clean it up and make it a little nicer. Okay, and what we have right there is a Ken that matches more closely with what we're used to. So as you can see, we've made him a little bit blockier headed, but he will now fit around the body, just like that. So again, it works, but he's not going to fit perfectly on there, because what we have right now is just a little bit better than what we could do, or just a little bit worse than what we could do. So right now you see he's on there, and we can articulate him, we can move him, but we're going to have to make sure that his head stays on there every time we do that, because he's not actually secured in there. Because there's nothing inside his head holding him onto the plug. So his head comes off really easily because his head is just held on with tension. Which isn't bad. That's not a horrible way to have a Ken on there. At least for a vintage doll. Because he is now on there. But I think we can do better. So my previous method that I've shown on here is to cut up one of your donor Ken dolls, which are generally these heads that I have from my wheelchair Ken. And what you want really is to just kind of cut up everything above there to get this part of the head. But because his head is already so narrow, I don't think that's going to work. So I think this is actually probably going to be our best bet. And what we want to do is figure out a new way to not make him look quite so thick in the neck. So we might actually go a little further up on our cut, right there, I'm thinking. Just to make it just a little more natural looking, hopefully. But again, we're going to just do what we can. Just a little bit like that, maybe. And notice how we still have the bulk of the jawline and the chin preserved. We're just opening that up just a little bit to try and make it a little bit better looking. Ooh, that made it worse. Ooh, yeah, no. Whew. All right. We made him jowly. That is not the look we were going for. Okay, so we're going to go up on that. And again, like I said, with these vintage dolls, it is really about trial and error. And again, these aren't going to hold up to play features most of the time. But what they will do is stand up for photographs, usually. Gosh. I don't know. That's unfortunate. He does not look great right now. So it was a mistake, I think, to cut out that part of the jaw. I think that's kind of what kept him from looking too jowly. So what we might have to do is cut a little further up and make a new jawline. And again, it's all trial and error. if at the end of this, you know, I don't have a Ken doll anymore, that's okay. Because like I said, these were just damaged Ken dolls that I'd gotten that were in need of some love and support. And so we're trying to give them a little bit of new life. Okay. So that looks all right. It's not perfect, and he's only like barely hanging on there. But he actually looks okay. That beat out a little bit of the blockiness by reshaping that jaw and allowing him to spread a little more naturally on that head. So, okay, you know, I'll call that a win. So, unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna be able to fit him in there. We might be able to if I can just cut this part out. I might be able to kind of get that in there, so I think I'm gonna try it. And now for this part, what we do is we actually cut into the bulk of the head, because what we want is to preserve that lower ring. Right here. So this is the part we want to preserve, right down here. I'm gonna try to see if we can get that to fit into our vintage Ken head. Because I'll show you guys what that looks like. So like we put this on our little, whatchamacallit, on our classic doll right here. Yep. And a little inside info on what it looks like inside the head when we do that. And then what we want to do is put this under there. And try our best to kind of pop that up to the point where we had it. Like that, almost. So he's a little bit shorter necked right now, which isn't horrible. It's not the end of the world, but we're going to try for a little bit better. So what we don't really want is this added bulk down here that's fighting us getting the head in. We need a little bit of that to secure the head, but majority we want is back there. Like that. And see, now we can kind of pose him. Again, he's a little bit short in the neck, but he's pretty posable now without having him immediately falling off. And this is about the same method that I use for my like 80s and 90s Kens, but it works. So now he's going to stay there without falling over immediately. And we have a vintage Ken, and really still pretty usable face for this Ken if we need to make like a horror mask or something. But generally I use these Playline Ken dolls for my donor heads, just because they make a little bit less of a sacrifice. And because I buy them in bulk, pretty much. So, we thank you for your service, little fashionista Ken. Now, the question comes if we're willing to do the same thing to Allan, because he does look good on there, I think. So I guess we're going to. Now that we know a little bit more about how we're going to wind up cutting him, we're just going to go up further and cut at the base of the hairline, I think, this time, and give him more of a defined jaw and less going into the chin, I think. And again, this is not a perfect Allan. He's not mint or anything like that. He's just meant to be used. That's what he is. And because I know we're going high up, I'm just going to cut him right back there. Kind of avoid having to cut out that other part that we've got. Okay. Okay. And then we're going to just go right along this little circle. And we're going to try as close as we can get. And then we'll clean it up. And then we'll use our little one to kind of clean up our cuts. And again, these are called nippers or flush cutters. They're used a lot in model building. And I mainly get them to build my Gundams. So we've got this looking pretty good. Okay. I'm thinking, okay. So we got him there. And now, because we didn't go as far down with our cut, here's our Sean that we're going to put him on the body of. here's his body ready to go. And you notice I don't cut those, the Sean and the Cam dolls. I only cut our other ones. So there's him for a skin tone match. And again, we don't have that seal because we don't have him on there. But I'm thinking that'll look okay if we put our donor Ken head in there. So again, here we go, another one of these. Okay, so here is our little head that we have. Again, we're going to clean this up just a little bit now that we have the majority of it cut away. And ideally what we want not so much of is a lip, but just that little bit of additional vinyl for our vinyl Allan head to kind of slide against. To hold it in place. And again, this is what that looks like when we put our head on there. As you can see, it kind of folds up under there. So then what we want to do is just kind of tuck that chin under there and then shove the rest of our head on top. As you can see, it's going to fold up. And what we want to do is just kind of pull him up like that. So again, it does make their heads a little more bulky, but again, now we can kind of move him freely. And so now Ken and Allan have gone for what would generously be called a slimline body, the original Ken and Allan bodies, now to the more muscle twink bodies. And there they are, ready to hit up Fire Island for the weekend. So they are a little bit more complicated to rebody than our vintage Barbie and Midge, which really only required just a little bit of nipping around the neck peg attachment. As you can see by those girls back there, and those are the rest of our Life in the Dream House gals. But for now, we have our vintage Ken and Allan that have been rebodied, and they're now ready to join the collection. And you guys will see them back again when I review my Ken collection at, let's say, probably 3,500 subscribers. So if you guys want to see that, subscribe and hit that bell. All right, y'all. Be good. Bye.